Order. We'll call public bills back to order. Welcome back, everyone, to One Government Place. We'll start with introductions of our MLAs, starting with the government side.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Melissa Sheehy-Richard. I'm the MLA for Hants West.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Palmer, MLA for Kings West.
Good afternoon. I'm Ryan Robichaud, the MLA for Clare.
Hello, I'm Julie Van Exen, MLA for King South.
Good afternoon, Kendra Coombs, MLA for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Good afternoon, everyone. Susie Hanson, MLA for Halifax Needham.
And I'm Scott Armstrong, the chair. I'm the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. We're going to call our next witness. It's Heather Wilkinson. Thank you very much for coming in. We're pleased that you're able to join us to testify to committee. Please introduce yourself, indicate any organization that you're representing, if any. Following that, we'll have a 5 minutes for the presentation and then followed up by questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Great, thanks very much. My name's Heather Wilkinson. I prefer to be addressed as Ms. or Heather. Today I'm speaking to you in my role as the co-founder and the artistic and executive director of Wonderneath Art Society, a charitable artist-led organization based in North End, Halifax.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just a second. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Heather Wilkinson, and as I said, I'm speaking to you in my role as co-founder and artistic director of Wonderneath Art Society. For context, Wonderneath is an organization that supports community engagement through the arts. We provide responsive community-engaged arts programming, equitable access to studio facility and resources, and affordable studio spaces for artists to develop and produce their work. We also collaborate with partners from across sectors to address barriers to accessing the arts and to support their clients' goals through creative practices. We're the anchor tenant and manage half of a 10,000 square foot accessible visual arts and craft facility called 2482 Maynard, developed collaboratively between a private business and a charitable organization. I mention our space because I'd like to speak to you, but a different kind of space in relation to Clause 62 to amend the Gaming Control Act to exempt casinos and propose casinos from deed transfer taxes. When I read Clause 62, I was struck by the fact that the Financial Measures Act would remove a legitimate tax revenue from a business or facility, namely casinos and proposed casinos, that have demonstrated and studied negative impacts on health and wellness at great cost to our healthcare system. In the paper Best Advice for Preventing Gambling Problems in Nova Scotia from 2008, some of the harms from gambling problems addressed included stress, anxiety, stress-related ailments, ulcers, colitis, high blood pressure, heart disease, adolescent delay in learning healthy coping skills, substance use, depression, suicide and suicide ideation, financial problems, marital conflict, family breakup, and violence, to name just a few. They also concluded that it appears that the greater proportion of negative individual and family impacts was borne by persons of lower social and economic status. With this being the case, and with gambling expansion having occurred during a period when various governments sought revenue without increasing taxes, there's a justification for viewing gambling expenditures as a voluntary regressive tax with greater impact on lower income Canadians. They conclude by saying if this pattern has the effect of widening the disparity of material wealth among Nova Scotians, it may affect population health. A widening disparity has been shown to have a negative impact on the health of populations. Which leads me to ask why would the government release an entity of this type from legitimate taxation with the loss of revenue that in turn means that arts organizations that have proven to improve wellness and both physical and mental health outcomes are affected. The Canada Council for the Arts just published last month an article discussing the rise Across Canada, and arts organizations and care providers increasingly putting a holistic practice into effect, exploring how creativity and community can expand the reach and impact of the health system, describing the development of social prescribing as a therapeutic complement to care. They say this is an investment that makes sense for our community well-being. The report shows that the benefits of arts-based social prescribing aren't just anecdotal. Data shows that they have measurable impacts, especially among youth and older adults. According to the recent report by the Canadian Institute for Social Prescribing, programs like these can reduce primary care visits by up to 42% and emergency department use by 24%, while generating an estimated return of $4.43 for every dollar invested. Recreational therapists and wellness navigators from the IWK, the Abbey Lane facility, and the community wellness team bring clients to Wonderneath programming regularly, not simply for a fun afternoon, but to introduce them to a program and space with low barriers that they can return to on their own as they develop personal plans to support their ongoing well-being. I'd like to share with you a quote from one of these healthcare workers.
You have about a minute left.
Thanks. I'm a recreation therapist working in community healthcare and addictions with the IWK. Part of my role includes connecting children and youth and their families to appropriate community resources that support their mental health goals. I've attended the Open Studio program at Wonderneath with clients and their families numerous times over the past year and often recommended as a resource to our clinicians. This program provides many benefits to our clients, such as decreasing financial barriers, providing a space that is welcoming to everyone of various ages and abilities, staff that are knowledgeable, kind and patient teachers. I'm going to stop that there so I don't run out of time. The arts are integral to our communities, to our healthcare, and our well-being. Arts organizations across the province provide space, programming, performances that bring people together, create civic engagement, develop confidence and self-expression, critical thinking, create dialogue, and invite participation that changes lives, to name just a few. We take risks and work with passion and care.
We're going to have to cut you off there. Thank you very much. We'll now open the floor up to questions from MLAs. MLA Coombs.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I don't know if you've been here before. No. Welcome. And back in the old days, a couple years, presenters actually would have the time to choose between getting questions asked or presenting. And so I want to give that time back to you and ask if you would like to please continue with what you were discussing.
Ms. Wilkinson.
I wanted to add that as an organization that's trained, employed, and mentored almost 100 artists over the last decade in facilitation roles and community-engaged arts, I can tell you that I'm deeply concerned about keeping our emerging artists in Nova Scotia and about keeping more experienced artists in the field. I'd also add that I've been saddened and angered to have the work of our sector treated as a frill in these dialogues and our concerns dismissed as being orchestrated by others, which takes away our voices and undermines our democratic agency.
Great, thank you. MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Heather, for being here. I really do appreciate the work that you and all of your artists and your staff they do in the facility. It's a beautiful space. If anybody wants to go, you should go see and experience the beauty that your space gives. I want to ask specifically to the bill, when you read through the bill of the FMA and you noticed that was a particular piece that stood out to you. We know that nonprofit organizations and organizations that are doing great work in community don't have that same advantage about the deed transfer tax, I believe it is. How would that impact if it was reversed? How would that change the way that you do your work?
Ms. Wilkinson.
I think that we're seeing that there's a number of places in the bill where taxes are being shifted to take away money that previously helped to support the arts sector. And, we have agreements with the province, 3-year agreements to help support our operating funding. We found out a month ago, before the start of our fiscal year, which is April 1st, that those changes were coming forward. And so we have had no opportunity to have consultation with the government about the nature of the changes, about the programs that are being cut, about the impact that will have in our sector for the next decade.
Any further questions? MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So has the department reached out to you at all about the funding that is going to be cut from your programs?
Wait. So, Ms. Wilkinson.
We've only just heard about the nature of the cuts from Arts Nova Scotia in an email.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming in today. We'll move on to our next witness, Lynn McCollum. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
We'll ask you to introduce yourself, indicate any organization you are representing, if any. Following that, you'll have 5 minutes for a statement and then questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for providing me this time today. My name is Lynn McCallum. I'm a resident of Halifax, and I have concerns and questions regarding Bill 198, the Financial Measures Act of 2026, and the potential unintended consequences that they may foster. First, I'm concerned about Part 7, Clause 64, and its associated schedule, which pertain to the Halifax-Dartmouth Bridge Commission Act. I question why the province is moving to dissolve the commission and assume all of the debts and liabilities of the commission, which has a sound record as a financial steward and manager of the two harbour bridges. I'm also concerned that in a related measure, the province eliminated the source of revenue that paid for the debt service and maintenance of the bridges, the tolls, which were the well-established user fees. I'm concerned that the financial strain created by this and other clauses will have unintended consequences. Let me cite just one. This loss of revenue and the downstream shortfalls of funding for provincial programs could damage Nova Scotia's ability to recruit and retain desperately needed medical talent, including family doctors and specialists. A dear friend of mine is a physician who wants to move here from Philadelphia. She's a Penn, Stanford, and Yale-educated urologist and has practiced for more than 18 years. She's also a twice-published young adult fiction writer. She almost came for our literary festival afterwards, but there were too many COVID complications at the time. Her husband has a teaching certification for teaching high school, and he hopes to teach high school math and/or science. He has been a conductor of a prestigious university choir program. They have a pair of brilliant teenagers who are both musical and theatrical participants. These cuts will de-incentivize them to move to a place like Nova Scotia. As an author, I know she'd be delighted to be part of the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia. Organizations like Writers' Federation operate with so much volunteer and community contributions. Until these cuts came, the Afterwards Literary Festival had been growing and gathering more prestigious and inspiring authors. The funding for so many of the arts programs in Nova Scotia is so low, even before all of these cuts. This divestment is like canceling a volunteer program in order to save money. According to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce's 2025 report on artworks, the economic and social dividends from Canada's arts and culture sector for every single dollar invested in arts generates $29 of economic activity. It seems pound foolish to eliminate these economic drivers as effective as, economic drivers that are as effective as these. I know my friend's family will be happy and active members of whatever community they choose, but why would they choose a province that does not support communities they would be most active in? They want to come to a place that has supported a supported arts community where the community is lifted, not just a few self-supporting gifted circles. Otherwise, why wouldn't they just move to New Brunswick or Ontario or somewhere else? Why must we continually pass along the talent and just say, oh, well, that other place has a better tax base? Our culture is what makes us so special. I would also like to speak to clauses 62 and 63, which speaks to deprive municipalities the ability to collect revenue from deed transfer taxes and permitting fees, and indeed any input or ability to manage land use for casinos. This measure will take potential revenue from our municipalities at a time when that revenue is needed to fund essential services, further increasing the financial burden on taxpayers. This increased financial burden will be another disincentive for people, for example, medical professionals, to move to this province.
You have about a minute left.
Who we are so desperate to attract and retain. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today, and I'm asking, please do not implement these cuts to arts and culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll move to questions from MLAs. MLA Coombs.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I'm not sure if you've been here before, but welcome. I know it's not an easy room to be in. It can be a little unnerving, but you're doing great. So there was a part there's the last part, I know because you were running out of time, you got a little rushed. So if there's a part that you want to elaborate on a little bit more in that, please feel free to do so, because I'd like to hear it.
Ms. McCollum.
That's very kind, but I do not need to.
MLA Coombs.
Great, then I have another question. I just wanted to give you an opportunity there. You mentioned your friend who was wanting to move here and the concern that with these cuts that they might not, and you also mentioned the fact that this government is cutting different kinds of revenue that could be used to fund things that make our province vibrant and attractive to people. I'm wondering, do you see the potential not only for people not moving here, but people moving out of Nova Scotia? Absolutely. It just have to be.
Ms. McCollum.
Thank you, sir. Certainly, we see this again and again as if someone were to be a landed permanent resident, they certainly can look in other places if they're unsatisfied. I also know that one of the physicians that she has spoken with in one of the hospitals said when he told her, well, we actually did just hire a new urologist, but please apply again, because very often a spouse does not also find a job. And if only one person is working, then someone has a sort of unfulfilled career. And if you can find an opportunity that serves both members of or both of the parents, then yes, people may go on.
MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. You also mentioned that they have young people as a part of their family, and I think, the value that, and I can say this about us as Nova Scotians, is that we have such a vibrant province, and arts and culture is who we are. And what I'm hearing from a number of folks that have been here and speaking to us is that, this will be a huge loss to Nova Scotia. So I'm just curious to know, when this particular bill goes through, the Financial Measures Act, what type of positive outcome or not do you see coming from this bill?
Ms. McCollum.
If the cuts are adopted, I don't see the benefit. I see a lot of the urge for energy development and mining development, and I think those things would be great. It would be fantastic if they were implemented first and the revenue had begun to be generated before slashing at our culture. It's disappointing.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate you testifying to committee.
Thank you. I've submitted my
Yes, I think
text to the
we've got copies.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Our next presenter was coming in virtually, but has not arrived yet. So if possible, we'd like to move on to Carol Bruneau. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming to committee. We appreciate you coming. Please introduce yourself, indicate any organization you are representing, if any. That will be followed by 5 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for questions by MLAs. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Carol Bruneau, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I am a member of the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia, and I am a Nimbus author. I've worked, and I want to sort of speak to clauses 62 through 68 of the bill. I've worked for 30 years as a published author based in Halifax, Chibuktuk. I've published 11 books, many of these with Nimbus. My novels have been published internationally. And a small little gift I'm giving you today is a copy of my novel, Bright in the Corner Where You Are, about Maud Lewis, which was nominated for the International Impact Dublin Literary Award. This book is a real popular thing among tourists, cruise ship visitors, and so on. They find it as a good introduction to our province and our touristic cash cow, Maud Lewis. Anyway, I write fiction about Nova Scotia and Nova Scotians for, but not exclusively for, Nova Scotian readers. My 12th book is due out this fall, but with the government's eradication of the Publishers Assistance Program, this is in jeopardy. After 30 years, my annual income in a good year is $14,000. Like everyone, I pay federal and provincial income tax, and I'm glad to do so. My income comes from a patchwork of sources: advances, which local publishers will no longer be able to pay, royalties, 10% of the cover price per copy sold, small amounts from teaching workshops, mentoring other writers, and participating in other programs through the Writers' Federation, which has suffered devastating cuts to its writers in the school's funding. I also earn income from small honorariums for speaking engagements and participating on national and provincial grants and awards juries. By no means regular, assured opportunities. And I am just one of hundreds of published authors based in Nova Scotia. We all earn a living pretty much the same way, and we all pay income tax. So do the thousands of other people employed in one way or another in the province's publishing industry: in-house editors, freelance editors, in-house designers, freelance designers, in-house marketers and sales reps, and freelance marketers, in-house publicists, freelance publicists, and warehouse workers. And let's not forget booksellers and their staff members. This represents a huge contribution in provincial income tax, which we all pay. I ask you to think of the provincial revenue from this source alone that will be eliminated when all of us, so badly hurt by this budget and its cuts, have our income slashed, in some cases reduced to nothing. I ask how the government intends to make up for this shortfall in income tax revenue. At the same time, I ask what the government's plans are to replace the revenue lost through dissolving the Halifax-Dartmouth Bridge Commission and eliminating the bridge tolls, and to replace the revenues lost by reducing the HST by 1%. How did the government intend to make up for these shortfalls? Most authors and others who are part of Nova Scotia's publishing ecosystem will be forced to work out of province. For younger writers, this will mean moving to provinces unlike this one that support their publishers instead of throwing them out of business. With this budget, Nova Scotia will be the only province in Canada that does not support its publishing industry, an industry that works with shoestring budgets and a narrow profit margin given the cost of paper printing and all the other associated costs. Publishing out of province I could do. I've done it before, but for me it's not a good option because I prefer to work in an industry that's employing fellow Nova Scotians. We Nova Scotians are our stories, the Mi'kmaq, African Nova Scotians, settlers, newcomers, and you, honorable members, we are all our stories. My books are both the experiences of ordinary Nova Scotians and the history and heritage that make us the tough, smart, resilient, resourceful people that we are and make this province mighty even though it is small. And a big part of that heritage goes back to Joseph Howe, a writer who fought for press freedom and responsible government, democracy. And democracy, from what I'm seeing, is under severe threat in this province. Writers and publishers are an essential part of our democratic tradition that goes back more than 170 years. As a published author, I'm proud and honored to be one small part of this. And I think I'm out of time, but you've heard about the loss to our province, not only in revenue as a result of these disastrous cuts to the arts, but also the loss of identity, what defines us as Nova Scotians.
Thank you, Ms. Bruneau.
Thank you for
We'll open the floor
listening.
up to questions from MLAs. MLA Coombs.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for this. Very kind. Welcome to Public Bills. My first question is going to be, if you have more to say within your presentation, I'd be more than happy to hear more from you.
Just hang on. Mrs. Bruneau, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm not good at protocol. Can you tell? I think that the cuts, especially to publishing, the loss of the Publishers Assistance Program, which is $700,000, in the scheme of things, the way it benefits all of the province from end to end, thousands of people, benefits the tourism industry and so on, that is cut is just, it's unconscionable. Nimbus, for instance, has been publishing local books very successfully for 50 years. And they're a big part of our cultural tradition and our heritage, and they promote us, their books travel worldwide. The book you have in front of you has traveled the world with cruise ship passengers, with out of country sales and so on. And this is just one example of the fine work that Nimbus Publishing does. I've worked with an Ontario publisher, and you don't have the same sense of community with someone out of province. You don't have the same experience. We work collectively to support our own culture and heritage and our own publishing industry. As authors, we rely on each other's research to do our books. It's a very intertwined network of people who are working hard and are dedicated Nova Scotians, want to stay here, want to work here, but many people will not be able to. If they want to pursue their writing careers, they'll have to leave.
MLA Rankin.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your presentation and the book, of course. Really nice gesture. The defense we had in estimates from the minister and government is that there's another fund, the Creative Fund, which is also being reduced. How would that fit in with your next book? Does that give any opportunity for you to, maybe you could explain the difference of...
Just stay on.
You have to be recognized, yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Bruneau.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
You can see why I'm not in government.
We
right?
do this every
Oh,
day.
not
Sure,
good.
you don't, so that's okay. Go ahead.
I don't think it would benefit because, again, I have this book coming out in the fall, which to me is an important story. It's set in 2023, the year that climate change just hit our province with a vengeance, and it is about disastrous development and its effect on the environment. And to me, it's an important story that needs to be told, needs to get out there, but it might not because of these immediate cuts. So I don't know how this other fund will trickle down. I really don't know. Meanwhile, the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia, their program, the Writers in the School program, is critical to students in schools to encourage them to write. There are so many kids who are resistant writers. Literacy is an issue. And that program encourages kids like, yes, you can write. This is what we do. You can do this. And that program has lost its operating budget is devastating. And it's devastating for people's kids. I am a grandmother. It's devastating to me that my grandson will not have access to programs like that.
MLA Hanson, with just under a minute left.
Thank you. So I won't ask a question. I just want to say thank you so much for giving us this generous gift. And as well, I hope that the members opposite take some of those questions that you've asked about specifics in the bill, because we are all asking the same questions about what this looks like, what are the impacts, how is this going to affect Nova Scotians, and what was the process in making these decisions. So I truly appreciate, you sharing all of this wonderful information, but as well your gift to us, because this is truly what we're about in Nova Scotia. We are about the arts, the culture, and sharing who we are to the world. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate your contribution. We'll go to our next witness.
Thank you very much.
Melanie Kennedy Conrad and Andrew Hutchins. Thank you very much for coming in. Welcome to committee.
Thank you.
So if you could please introduce yourselves, indicate any organization that you represent, if any. That'll be followed by 5 minutes for a presentation. Following that will be questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Melanie Kennedy Conrad. I am a registered counseling therapist and a longtime teacher here in HRCE. This is my son, Andrew, who will soon be able to vote. And I am here to speak on behalf of the Artists in the Schools programs, which was beautifully covered by our previous guest who spoke about the writers in the schools. That is one of 6 of the organizations that's covered by that. So I've written a little story, and I don't propose that it's nearly as good as the book that you just got, but here we go. Across Nova Scotia, there was once a garden at every school, and all the children could visit. They were gardens of stories, songs, colors, and ideas. Teachers, students, and communities made space for the gardens, but it was the traveling artists who made them grow. They came to schools large and schools small and coastal schools and inland schools because every garden mattered. It was exciting for the children to have the visitors who were experts in their crafts. A dancer came and showed the vines how to stretch and move like waves rolling towards Peggy's Cove. Wherever she stepped, the soil grew stronger. An actor followed with a suitcase full of voices. He showed the stems how to speak bravely and clearly with the lively spirit of Acadian stories that have traveled Nova Scotia's history. The leaves lifted themselves higher just to listen. Musicians arrived with fiddles and drums and songs that rose like wind across the highlands of Cape Breton, carrying echoes of Gaelic traditions that have shaped the province's music for centuries. And the blossomed leaned in, learned harmony, and the garden began to sing together. Painters arrived with pockets full of color. They showed the petals how the water could hold more than just blue, like in the sweeping coastlines of Sable Island. The garden grew brighter wherever they worked. The writers came. Mi'kmaq storytellers shared stories rooted deep in this land that had lived here long before the schools were built, and others shared stories of Africville and Preston, voices carried across generations that told stories of strength, belonging, courage, and community. The smallest buds listened carefully because they understood that some stories grow best when they are told by the people that carry them. And soon the children began telling their own stories too. You see, the point of the gardens is not to grow artists. It was to grow people who would sit in audiences one day, visit galleries, support performances, and make sure the gardens kept growing for the next generation. For 50 years, the gardens flourished. Then one day, Mr. Blue Man, who was in charge, made a decision. This section requires visiting artists, he said. Very nice, but also very much. When we have more, we will do more. But for now, we can't afford to bring the artists here. And soon after that, the invitations stopped. At first, nothing seemed different. The vines still stretched, the blossoms still sang, the story trees still whispered. But slowly, the colors dulled, the music softened, the stories grew quieter, and the artists left. They traveled to places where the gardens were still growing. Years passed, and Mr. Blumen returned. We have more now that I can give you. A teacher knelt and picked up a handful of pale soil. The gardens needed the artists when the children were growing, she said. Mr. Blumen looked at the empty ground stretching across so many schools. But I brought money for seeds, he said. The seeds were always here, the teacher replied, but without the artists, the soil in which they grew became thin and tired and could no longer support the seeds. He stood very still for a long time, and he said quietly, I thought I was just trimming the garden's flowers. I see now I was pulling them up by the roots. Communities don't grow alone. They grow when artists help the gardens take root. They grow when children learn to love the gardens because those children become the supporters that keep the gardens alive. You have the chance to rewrite the end of this story. I would like to call attention to the slides that are in your package. They detail the 6 programs that are being cut in the Artists in the Schools, with the Artists in the Schools cut. They've been around since 1976. They're all cost-shared or free to students. And the numbers are, in the last 5 years, for example, 1,256 school visits, 7,582 hours of programming, and 169,880 students who have been the recipients of this funding.
Thank you very much. We'll go to MLA questions. Just a reminder to MLAs and presenters that we're discussing FMA, Bill 198. This particular program is not referred to, is not part of Bill 198, so if you could frame your questions so that the presenter can answer in reference to Bill 198. MLA Coombs.
Thank you. And first, it's a beautiful story. And it's a sad story.
It is a sad story.
And we are seeing within the Financial Measures Act cuts being made to a detransfer tax for casinos. We are seeing, with regards to the Bridge Commission, we've seen the loss of the tolls on the bridge, and some have pointed out the tax cut at 1%. Do you believe that those types of cuts, as well as the out-of-spending the government has done, has created the situation that we are in now, and the sad situation, almost futuristic, of where we could be?
Ms. Kennedy Conrad.
Thank you. Yes, and that was actually part of the slide show that I shared with my MLA. I believe that if Nova Scotians had known what those great things were going to cost them in the long run, they would not have been as happy about them. All of that financial hardship is chipping away at a program that's quiet. Kids don't go home and say, guess what? Guess what happened today? The tax dollars were spent really well. They go home and they tell their parents, oh, hey, we had this awesome thing that happened in schools. And so parents, I'll be honest, they're not going to notice if these programs go. But the kids will notice. And Nova Scotia will notice in the long run because there will be nobody left to support the sector.
MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really good presentation. I appreciate the numbers that I heard earlier, 170,000 students. I can't imagine telling students that they're no longer able to access the programs. Andrew, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you are here. So if you want to, maybe you can express if you've had some experience with the program or your general thoughts. Yeah.
Mr. Hutchins.
I can very easily, because I've been in these programs that are being cut, and I've seen these programs that are being cut. But more importantly, I'm friends with the people that these programs are affecting, and I'm watching as the things that they love are being stolen from them by the government. And it's very easy to see them go, well, it doesn't seem like they care about us anyway. I'm watching as I'm at these performances, and I'm seeing these people who I know, it's not just these programs matter to them. These programs are a part of them. Everything they do, they found a part of themselves by being in these programs, and they sit there and they go, well, if this is what it's come to, do we matter to these people anyway? And that is the question that everyone is left with. And it is a hard question to answer because it doesn't feel like there is one at all. And it's scary that it seems like the answer might be no.
Thank you very much. MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I mean, prime example of, they don't care what you know till you know that they care. And I grateful that you're going to be at voting age very soon. I think the engagement level that is happening right now is absolutely paramount to making change. And so, to the bill, the FMA, we have, my colleague has mentioned those particular things that are in the bill that are taking away revenue that could fund these programs, that could continue, the vibrancy of the arts in Nova Scotia. How did you feel when you heard about this particular bill coming forward and sparked you to come here and be in the space? It could be either one of you.
Go ahead, there's about a minute left.
Which one of us?
Either one.
You're
Okay,
on.
usually you say a name, so I
I know.
I was waiting for the name.
Put you on the spot.
I wasn't sure who wanted to answer it, so it's up to you.
I, like everybody else, was really happy to hear that taxes were being cut. I didn't really understand the bridge tolls because, frankly, I would be really annoyed if I lived in Windsor and I had to pay for the bridge in Halifax. And as a bridge user, I feel I should be using it. But we weren't told the cost. You told us what we saved. You decided we were going to spend or save $1,400 a family. I would suggest that's an average, and that is skewed greatly by people who are better off, who are making bigger purchases, and not so much the people that really need it.
Thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate you coming to committee. We'll move on to our next witness. Okay, we'll call for a recess.
Yes, Mr. Chair?
Do you know how long before the vote?
We only have 30 minutes? Is it 30 or is it 10? 30 or 10?
It'll be 10 at the most.
Is it it's on the committee of the whole house, maybe?
No.
Yeah, because the
No, it's not committee of the whole, it's
appropriations is only 10.
It's opposition.
Yeah. We should still go. order. Thank you very much to MLAs for coming back. We had a recorded vote in the legislature, so we had to run back, and now we're back on committee, so I'll call it to order. Our next witness will be coming in virtually. It is Janet Larkman. Good afternoon, Janet. Thank you very much for coming in.
For having me.
We can hear you loud and clear. So we'll ask you to introduce yourself, indicate any organization that you're representing, if any. Following that, you'll have 5 minutes for a statement. Following that, there will be questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. My name is Janet Larkman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the executive director of King's Theatre. In between the time that I prepared these remarks and now the budget has passed, and so it feels a little odd to be proceeding with this presentation. So I'm going to start in a slightly different way than I had planned, and that is to pick up on something that the previous speaker before the recess had said, and she said that when the government of the day campaigned on reducing the HST and canceling the bridge tolls, she didn't really think too much about it because there was no mention of the fact that it would be reducing the government coffers by over $300 million and what the cost would be. And we now know all of these cuts to the things that we love are the result of that. And that's where we stand today. So I'm just going to tell you about what it means for us here. So I work at King's Theatre, which is one of the busiest small theatres in Canada with over 200 events a year and about 16,000 people coming through our doors. We're located in Annapolis Royal, which is a tiny rural town of only 500 people. It is the smallest municipality in Nova Scotia and the smallest town in Canada. It's a town with an economy that is entirely centered on culture, heritage, and tourism. We have dozens of organizations in our community that will be affected by these cuts, including the closure of one of our museums. And yes, we do feel targeted. At King's Theatre, I just want to say that the investment of the province in our core operating budget, for every dollar they invest, we add 9 more dollars. We employ 10 people and we pay hundreds of artists every year to perform on our stage. People tell us every single day that they have chosen to move to our community in large part because of the theatre and our year-round programming. And based on a proven multiplier of 4.5, our theatre puts close to $3 million a year into our local economy. In the work that we do at King's Theatre, we have an incredible focus on youth. Thousands of youth participate in programs at King's Theatre every year. And we make sure that every child in our region has the opportunity to experience the theater no matter what their family income. We host free shows for youth and we bring entire schools into the theater. We host free workshops that give youth the opportunity to learn about every aspect of theater, from performing and directing to stage managing, set design, costumes, sound, lighting, marketing, box office, concession, everything. We host youth productions. And the performers that come up that perform on our stage start at the age of 4 and on up. These children learn self-confidence, public speaking, leadership skills, how to work in ensemble. They develop body positivity and self-esteem. They build diverse, lifelong friendships with youth and adults of all ages. The skills they learn and the experiences they have at the theater are theirs for life. We are truly building the leaders of tomorrow. And yes, our organization will be cut. And at the same time, Nova Scotian artists of all genres are losing their support, meaning that there will be fewer Nova Scotian productions available for us to present on our stage. There will be less theater, less dance, less music, not to mention fewer books and less visual art by Nova Scotian artists. So we will have fewer Nova Scotians on our stage and fewer Nova Scotian stories being told. And as we've all heard, the budget includes $66 million for the arts. But we should not be bragging about this. Nova Scotia is the 3rd lowest province in the country per capita investments in culture. We invest in Nova Scotia $66 per person.
You have a minute
which
left.
Puts us, just 1 minute, well below the national average of $151 per person. So one of the programs to be cut is the accessibility program, being cut by 80%. We have an application in to that program to help us build an accessible backstage so we can present artists with disabilities and include people in our community that have disabilities. So when programs like that go, how is the province going to meet its own goal of accessibility by 2030? In 2024, a study in the UK showed that adults that participate in the arts reduce the cost on healthcare by about $1,800 a year. So if every Nova Scotian had access to the arts, that would be a $1.8 billion reduction in the healthcare budget here in our province. So if we truly want to fix the deficit and grow our economy, we must invest in the things that bring us health and prosperity. By de-investing in culture, we are building a new kind of poverty.
Thank you. We're going to cut you off there.
Yep.
But we're going to open up the floor for MLA questions. MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Janet. I don't think we've met, but I have performed on the stage at King's Theatre many times, first as a member of the Gilbert and Sullivan Society of Nova Scotia, and then later with Two Planks and a Passion. And it's a beautiful theatre, and I know the incredible work that happens there. You had said in the early part of your remarks about how you said, yes, we do feel targeted. And I'm wondering if you can just expand on that. Do you mean the town of Annapolis Royal, or do you mean the arts sector, or what did you mean by that? And can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Mrs. Larkman, please just try to tie your comments to the FMA and Bill 198 if possible. Go ahead.
I think the town of Annapolis Royal feels targeted in the sense that the entire economy of this town is built on tourism, heritage, and culture. And every business, every organization is linked in some way to those things. And those are the things that were targeted in this budget. So we are going to feel the impacts in a huge way. North Hills Museum, which was gifted to the province 50 years ago, is being closed with no indication of what's going to happen to the collection there. 3 employees have lost their jobs, but I mean, it's a very tightly woven, integrated system here, and when you start breaking things, it's very hard to unbreak them.
MLA Chender.
Thank you. Hi, Janet. It's great to hear from you. I, too, have spent some time at the King's Theatre seeing amazing shows, and I'm well aware of the way in which the economy of your town operates. I'm glad to hear Arch and Poe is reopening, but there are very few things that are open year-round, and the King's Theatre is one of them. In the Financial Measures Act, there is a provision that waives the deed transfer tax for the new casino. And presumably that's about stimulating the economy and the jobs that will come with that and the revenue. I'm wondering if you can specifically speak to what you see as the impact on the jobs and economic viability of Annapolis Royal with the other measures that are connected to this. And do you think there ought to be a concurrent investment in the economy and the jobs in small communities like yours?
Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, I think rural communities like ours are really going to feel this in a big way. I don't know the precise number of jobs that are going to be lost as a result of this. None of us know. We are going to find out. But as I was saying, it's all very interconnected. So when we're busy with programming at the theater, the restaurants are full, the accommodations are full. People are pumping, at the gas stations and going around to, buy things at the stores. So. Our budget is being cut, so we will have to reduce our services, and in turn, everything else is going to be reduced. So, you mentioned the casino deed transfer tax. That is another choice that was made to deliberately reduce the revenues to the government, and it's very hard to see those reductions in revenue and then turn around and see basically the exact same numbers of reductions in the programming that supports communities like ours.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, we really appreciate you coming on this afternoon. We thank you for your time. Moving on to our next witness, it'll be Kim Sweeney. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming in this afternoon. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself, indicate any organization you represent, if any at all. Following that, there'll be 5 minutes for a statement, followed by questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. My name is Kim Sweeney. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a single mom and a human rights lawyer living in Dartmouth, and I'm alarmed at what I've witnessed in this legislative sitting and budget process and the resulting negative impacts to our democratic processes. The FMA is an omnibus bill affecting over 20 pieces of legislation being rushed through the legislature, often late at night, without giving the public enough time to learn about and speak to the proposed changes. We only have 5 minutes to speak to this huge omnibus bill with widespread impacts across various sectors, so I'm going to try and keep my remarks brief in order to speak to as many issues as I can. I've seen a profound lack of engagement, consultation, and listening to citizens. This bill and the budget contain major changes to long-standing laws and policy directives in Nova Scotia that are being changed without any consultation with Nova Scotians in impacted sectors. Further, we're seeing an unwillingness to meet with and listen to citizens' concerns by certain PC MLAs. If you aren't going to listen to us speak, do you hear the people sing? Inability from Cabinet and PC MLAs to answer questions about the budget has been rampant throughout this process, and the FMA. The lack of justification or explanation or reasoning behind these major decisions. We want to understand these changes. Who is benefiting? What are the financial and economic impacts? Who will bear the burden? What was the analysis that led to these decisions? These unanswered questions are especially concerning given that the Appropriations Act was already passed today. I'm especially concerned by limiting the debate in the legislature. A central part of our democratic process is that bills are debated in the House. A central part of an MLA's job is to represent their constituents' concerns in those debates. When you limit debate, you remove their ability to fulfill this basic function of their job, and you rob the public of the opportunity to learn more about the bill in question. If a government truly stood by their decisions, they should have no issue defending them within our democratic process. The FMA reflects a continued pattern of the concentration of powers to the ministers. Many of the changes in this act, Clause 53, 55, 56, 60, 75, 76, 77, 78, to name a few, include concentrating power and decision-making to ministers. This is never a good sign. We don't have answers to the basic questions about whether it's appropriate for ministers to have this power, and who do these changes remove power from and agency from. Further, the FMA reflects a continued disregard for the Auditor General and her recommendations. This government has spent $6.7 billion outside of the budget since 2021. Billions of dollars are being spent without approval of the legislature, without any accountability. We deserve to know where our tax dollars are going, especially when the government makes decisions to make up their spending deficit on the backs of our communities. On March 12th of this year, Tim Houston said that this out-of-budget spending was going to continue as necessary. This all amounts to a disregard for our democratic process and sets a shameful and dangerous precedent for democracy in this province. I don't have time to speak to all of the sections of the Act that I'm concerned with, so I'm going to use my remaining time to focus on one. This government's abysmal record on treaty rights and Indigenous rights under Section 35 of the Constitution continues in this Act. Clause 58 is especially concerning to me. Enabling the government to remove and impound vehicles on provincial Crown land in violation of the Act is in direct response to Mi'kmaq protesters at Cape Breton's Hunter Mountain. It is questionable whether the change to the Crown Lands Act last year prohibiting individuals from blocking logging roads on Crown land would actually stand up in court, and now the government is doubling down. To quote Finance Minister Lohr, I think during those protests, we learned that we didn't have that ability to impound vehicles and thought that should be something we should be able to do.
You have a minute left.
When the Mi'kmaq inevitably challenge these laws in court, the government will spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars defending themselves, which will further add to the deficit. Taken together with the cuts to the tripartite forum, Mi'kmaq language programs, supports for Mi'kmaq students in early development and early childhood and development, it is clear that this government's stated objective of saving money is false. Rather, they are seeking to weaken Indigenous communities who regularly stand, often successfully, in opposition to their harmful resource extraction and development agenda. I am frustrated, confused, and embarrassed by this bill and the behavior of the PC MLAs in this legislative sitting. As a citizen and a mother, I fear for the future of my daughter and the well-beings of my loved ones being impacted in many ways across the province. As a lawyer, I fear for what this means for the future of democracy, rights, accountability, and the long-term sustainability of this province. This government was elected with a record low voter turnout of 45% of eligible voters on a narrow mandate of fixing health care, which it has not done despite spending $6.7 billion.
Thank you. The time for statements has run out. We'll now turn to questions for MLAs. MLA Gender.
Thank you. So I'm going to let you finish, but maybe you could also address, I'm interested in the provision that you raise around vehicles. Part of that provision, as I read it, also allows the government to sort of deputize department agents to do the work that normally would be done by law enforcement. So since you're a lawyer, I wonder if you can speak to that specifically, because we have concerns about that, but I'd love your analysis and any other remarks that you didn't have time to say.
Ms. Sweeney.
Yeah, for sure. I also am concerned about that provision. I am not extremely knowledgeable on that aspect of law, but I think generally when we see that happening, law enforcement, I already think, are not trained enough to execute the law. I had to spend 3 years studying the law to practice it. Police officers and law enforcement takes substantially less time to learn how to enforce it. And people who are deputized without any training, how can we ensure that they are appropriately carrying out those duties, especially when very complex issues like constitutional rights of Indigenous people are involved?
MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you very much for being here. And I just wanted to, I saw a post on social media today, and in fact, it sort of like, went by me pretty quickly, but it was a post about how the Inuit programming that happens in Halifax and other places in the province is now going, because of the budget cuts, is going to have to be limited to only Halifax. So people who are doing those classes outside of HRM will have to come into HRM. So basically they're cutting their services. That doesn't seem like reconciliation to me. So I was wondering if you could comment on that in terms of, how you see our treaty responsibilities, to Indigenous people in general and our reconciliation responsibilities.
Ms. Sweeney.
Absolutely. Out of the recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, very few of those recommendations have actually been implemented. And so the program cut that you mentioned obviously is one of many in this budget that are cutting Indigenous programming and are all antithetical to reconciliation. It's walking back what little progress we have made in the past decade. It's cutting funding from already severely underfunded communities that we didn't have to cut, right? This barely makes a drop in the bucket of the deficit. We're cutting we're cutting revenues in other areas and trying to make it up on the backs of Indigenous people is not reconciliation. We have so much more to do in our responsibilities to the Indigenous people of this land as treaty people, and this is not the way to go.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate your time. We'll call upon our next witness, Evelyn Sweeney. Thank you very much for coming in today. Could you please identify yourself, any organization you're representing, if any? Following that, there will be 5 minutes for a presentation, followed by questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
My name is Evie Sweeney. I use she, her pronouns. I'm 15 years old. I live in Dartmouth, and I'm here because I'm concerned about the Financial Measures Act and our government's priorities. And I'm representing no
other organization. You're representing yourself.
Yeah, no other organizations.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. I think you're the youngest presenter we've had, so congratulations on your involvement in democracy. The floor is yours for 5 minutes. We'll start now.
Thank you. The budget and the FMA are reflections of our government's priorities, and I don't see my future prioritized. I want to be an artist and marine biologist here. My mom is a single mom, so we don't have a lot of money for extracurriculars, so community-based programs have given me incredible opportunities to pursue my passions, like Wonderneath Art Center, McPhee Center for Creative Learning, like Terranaut Club for girls and gender diverse youth in STEM, and the Youth Project. And I rely on my bus pass to get me to these activities as well as to school. The cuts will affect all of these organizations and directly impact my life and the lives of many youths in Nova Scotia. But this government is prioritizing investing money in large corporations, harmful resource extraction, and AI, instead of our future. It doesn't make sense to me why the government would get rid of revenue resources like the budget tolls and the 1% HST, and then make up that money by cutting arts, culture, education, African Nova Scotian affairs, Ilnu affairs, mental health and addictions, and so much more, which barely even makes a dent in the $1.2 billion deficit. In fact, arts and cultures makes the province money. For every $1 the Nova Scotian government gives to arts and cultures in grants, they generate $4.59 in other revenues. I don't understand why the government is prioritizing unsustainable resource extraction revenue instead. It is short-sighted, and Nova Scotia has seen the effects of boom and bust economies before, like coal mining in Cape Breton and the cod fishing industry. It doesn't work. We need to invest in communities instead of corporations that will come here, take our resources, make a lot of money for the already rich, and then leave us in poverty with a toxic wasteland. Nova Scotia has some of the highest child poverty and food insecurity rates in the country, yet this budget and the FMA cut funding to programs that work to fix these issues and gives money to billionaires to race their yachts. Nova Scotia has beautiful landscapes, beaches, and forests, and people come from all over to experience this. These exist because the Mi'kmaq have protected and taken care of this land for generations. This bill is a direct attack on the treaty rights and targets Mi'kmaq land and water protectors, particularly Clause 58. Together with the cuts to Mi'kmaq programs, this government is steamrolling Indigenous rights, and it's not wrong. And it is wrong. It is wrong. We are all treaty people. I'm also concerned about Clause 52, amending the Community Easement Act and the impacts on Dartmouth Cove. As an aspiring marine biologist, Dartmouth Cove is really important to me because of the marine life that lives there. The Cove is one of the last publicly accessible parts of coastline in downtown Dartmouth. I like to go there to paint, to walk my dog. I go there to bike, and I go there to feel grounded. The changes to the Easement Act takes away power from easement holders and gives it to the developer landowners to get around community rights and interests in favor of their bottom lines. It is wrong, and it's just another example of this government prioritizing corporations over community. My family is from Yarmouth. My mom and me and my grandmother are the only ones who still live in Nova Scotia. Everyone else in my family has moved away because of limited opportunities. I used to think I would live in Nova Scotia forever. I love it here. But now, I'm watching this government take away opportunities for me, like STEM scholarships, youth and artist programs, and protections for natural spaces. I don't know if I see a future for me here anymore. I ask that you change this bill to better support every Nova Scotian, our communities, and our long-term future on this land. It's okay to change your mind.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now go to MLA questions. MLA Chender.
Thank you, Evelyn, for presenting. I've seen you present before. Just gets better and better. Thanks for standing up for the Cove. And please stay.
Okay.
That's it.
MLA Palmer.
Hi, Evie. Thanks for coming in today. Very, very articulate, and takes a lot to be able to stand up or to sit there and to do that today, so thank you. I am curious, you talk about marine biology as an aspiration for you. What is it about marine biology like that is interesting to you, that you'd see yourself in that kind of career?
Evelyn, go ahead.
Is it Evie or Evelyn? Sorry.
Well, Evelyn's like my full name.
Okay.
You should just go by.
Okay,
Evie,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
I want to pursue marine biology.
Evie, your mic, if you could turn the mic, there you go. Go ahead.
Oh, my bad.
No, it wasn't your bad at all.
I want to pursue marine biology because, like, our oceans are like getting filled with pollution and overfishing, and I don't know. It also just fascinates me, and I just really want to protect the waters around Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Emily LeBlanc.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Evie. I make a joke that because I take antidepressants, I don't cry anymore. But you made me cry, so that's a real big achievement. Yeah, really. Obviously, you're very intelligent and articulate. But I wanted to ask you about Wonderneath and the McPhee Center. My own kids have gone to the open studios at Wonderneath, and it's. I mean, like the fact that it's there and exists, I really wish we had one in Dartmouth, like a version of that in Dartmouth, and that's kind of a long-term goal of mine. But can you talk about, like specifically about McPhee and Wonderneath and about what it means to attend those programs? I mean, you talked a little bit about how, it helps you develop as an artist, but about like even more than art, if there is anything more than art, like connection and... yeah, what it does for you, what those places do for you.
Go ahead, Evie, and you have some time, so go ahead.
I really like to go to Wonderneath and McPhee Center because it's like it creates like a safe space for like a lot of like queer, gender diverse youth to just like be able to like explore art and different kinds of like activities while making like connections and friendships with like other kids their age, which can be harder at schools because there's always just a lot going on. But yeah.
Any else have questions? Seeing none, Evie, just a comment. I think marine biology is getting a good one. So continue and study hard, and I'm sure you'll do great there, and I'm sure marine biology will be a wonderful spot for you. I'd also like to say all of us here have other careers outside of becoming politicians when we did, so keep your eye on politics too. I think you'd be a great contributor someday. All right. Thank you very much for presenting today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Emma Fitzgerald. Emma is coming to us virtually. Good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining us today. Can you hear us? Mrs. Fitzgerald, can you hear us? Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, there you are. First of all, welcome. Thank you very much for coming in virtually. We're sorry we're late. We get called to a recorded vote, so we're a bit late, and we appreciate you waiting and being patient. Please identify yourself, indicate any organization that you're representing, if any. Following that, there'll be 5 minutes for a presentation, followed by questions from MLAs, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Emma Fitzgerald. I'm representing myself, although I'll be speaking a lot about my own experience as an author and illustrator. I also want to mention that we do punch above our weight in Nova Scotia with an abundance of writers specifically for children and also illustrators specifically for children. So if you do have questions at the end, more broadly, I can speak to that.
Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. My name is Emma Fitzgerald. I moved to Mi'kma'ki 22 years ago to study architecture and stayed working in that field until a job loss led me to become a self-employed artist in 2013, publishing my first book, Hand-Drawn Halifax, with Formac Publishing in 2015. For the last 5 years, I've lived in the town of Lunenburg. I wanted to start with a poem, One Art, by Elizabeth Bishop, the Pulitzer Prize winner for poetry in 1956, who spent formative years living with her Gammy and Pa in Great Village, Nova Scotia. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seemed filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster. Some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident, the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. The theme of loss has been heavy on me these past weeks. What started as seemingly small changes a year ago, like the ending of the bridge toll, which is referred to in Clause 67 of Bill 198, plays its part in this feeling of loss. Living in Lunenburg, I rarely cross the McDonald Bridge unless doing a school visit for the Writers in the School program, sometimes several times a month. Those visits have reached as far south as Barrington, and with a provincial library tour as far north as Glace Bay. Now, with the budget cuts, there will be no more school visits via the Writers' Federation of Nova Scotia, which is a far greater blow than the supposed hardship of paying for a bridge toll. Each visit earns me a few $100s. That works out to about $2,000 a year for the past 5 years, each year. As a self-employed artist, a few $100s is money I can rely on to pay a household bill while I'm waiting on royalties that are small and come but once a year, or payment for wholesale shop orders for prints, which I invest considerable cash flow towards. To understand the true value of those visits, I invite you to look at the faces and artwork of the students in photos I have provided, students from the classrooms of grade 4 teacher Matthew Montgomery at Sackville Heights and Dartmouth North Elementary. Their faces and artwork exemplify author Catherine Rundell's words. Children's books say the world is huge. They say hope counts for something. Bravery will matter. Wit, empathy, and love will matter. I'll now share excerpts from a reference letter from Mr. Montgomery for my participation in a community-led public art project I had proposed for the Dartmouth North Library. Emma used her art from hand-drawn Halifax as a foundation to encourage the class to explore their own surroundings with fresh eyes. During a 1-hour session, she had students explore their neighborhood through art, sketching in pen and painting with watercolors. In that brief time, she succeeded in sparking their curiosity, instilling pride in their sense of place and demonstrating the power of art as a language of expression, transcending barriers, especially for students who are still developing their fluency in English. It was truly moving
You have
to see
about a
the
minute
joy
left.
and connection that Emma facilitated, and the students' excitement at meeting a real author and artist, complete with her many books. Finally, I'll return to poet Elizabeth Bishop. Rita Wilson, who wrote the children's book, A Pocket of Time, The Poetic Childhood of Elizabeth Bishop, only learned about Bishop after a long career teaching in rural Pictou County. She was shocked that a celebrated writer's poems and prose that described growing up in rural Nova Scotia were never part of her class curriculum. Determined to change this, Rita crafted a story that walks readers through Bishop's childhood home in Great Village. She sent the manuscript to publishers in Toronto. They did not want to publish it. But here in Nova Scotia, Nimbus Publishing did. I illustrated the book, having been enamored with Bishop and deep in research of my own. In a full circle moment, my work was shortlisted for IBI Canada's 2020 Mrazek Cleaver Award, which celebrates excellence in Canadian illustration. I was flown to Toronto for the award ceremony. Though I did not win, it remains the highest national recognition I have received, all while celebrating a Nova Scotian story. This past month, a notable American poet requested
Emma,
I send her
we're going to have to cut you off there,
Yep.
but we'll turn things over to MLAs, and sometimes they will allow you to finish. MLA LeBlanc.
Hi, Emma, it's Sue LeBlanc here. If you'd like to finish your presentation, I do have a question, but if you want to finish, go ahead. Or, oh, you're on mute.
Go, Emma, you're on mute now. Go ahead, Emma. It's because I haven't.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's our fault because I didn't indicate you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I think you get the gist, just that the book was meaningful to me and has a greater, broader meaning that is only possible because we have Nova Scotia publishers willing to publish these stories.
Emily LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For anyone in the room that might not know this book, Hand Drawn Halifax, and now there's a Hand Drawn Vancouver, I believe. I mean, this is a book I often buy when I'm traveling to bring as a gift to people not from Halifax. It's incredible. It's a beautiful book. I also have the coloring book that my son and I often collaborate on. Your work is really outstanding. But I'm more struck by the pictures of these students from John McNeill, which of course is in my community. It's one of the schools that is in Dartmouth North, and I know how, like, for schools like with John McNeill and Harborview, which have very, very low funds, basically. There's not a lot of capacity for fundraising at all in inner city and in high needs communities. That programs like Artisan Schools are true lifeline, and the artwork that happens at John McNeill is incredible. So I guess my question to you is: will you be able to go back to doing art in schools without the artisans, without the paints program? Like, is that a thing that you've heard from teachers? Like, will they be able to pony up and pay the extra money to have you come in?
Ms. Fitzgerald.
As far as I understand, no, because as you mentioned, it's already barely possible. Like, even actually for teachers to have the time to look through the list on the Writers' Fed page, pick someone who's appropriate, like, all that's time that teachers almost don't even have but they do. And this particular teacher, Mr. Montgomery, I commend him for his passion. And when he called me, and it was specifically for their submission for the Buddy Day art contest. So, but right now, I don't see that being a possibility, other than maybe in the French schools, because there's separate funding, the Canadian Parents for French. For instance, this month I'm going in for free to the Lunenburg, daycare for Children's Book Day to read. But that's me. Like, I'm willing to volunteer, but I can't go to nearly as many schools. And it is time and gas and all the rest of it. So with the Writers in the School program, when I did go down to Barrington and Lockport, they paid for more of my accommodation for one night. And that wouldn't be possible. And the feeling of being in a grocery store in Barrington, and the kid ran up to me and introduced me to his parents. Oh my God, this is the lady we met at school. She goes around the province and she paints different places. So yeah, I don't see that happening again.
Great. See no further questions. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you for coming to committee. Move on to our next witness, Alex Stratford. Yep, the page will take care of those.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stratford. Please introduce yourself, indicate any organization you're representing, followed by 5 minutes of statement and then questions from MLAs. Go ahead.
Great. My name's Alex Stratford. Pronouns are he, him. I'm here today representing the Nova Scotia Action Coalition for Community Wellbeing.
Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Great. Good afternoon, members of the Public Bills Committee. As I mentioned, I am here as the chair of the Nova Scotia Action Coalition for Community Wellbeing. Our organization unites individuals and groups who share a vision of a Nova Scotia free from poverty, and a province where everyone can thrive. I'm here today to address Clause 1 of the Financial Measures Act currently before us. Financial measures are designed to authorize government spending, generate revenue, and promote economic stability. However, the act in front of us falls short of these critical benchmarks. It neither provides adequate mechanisms for economic stability nor ensures equitable distribution of resources. Further, it lacks transparency and accountability necessary to maintain public trust in the management of public finances. What it does represent is a missed opportunity to address the existential threat of growing inequality which sustains poverty and poverty devastates the quality of life. It impacts our overall health, our well-being, and of course, our economy. And let's be clear, poverty is a political choice. For decades, successive governments have allowed poverty to persist for the purpose of creating a system where cheap labor fuels profits for a select few. Poverty isn't accidental. It's by design. It's designed to be a harsh motivator, forcing people to accept low-wage, precarious jobs and little to no benefits, all while living crisis to crisis below the poverty line. But it doesn't have to be this way, and it shouldn't be this way. The systems benefit only a few, and the majority struggle just to get by. The budget's framing of our economy and the role of government intervention misses the mark at this critical moment. We are facing rising inequality, a looming climate crisis, and global instability. Yet instead of bold action, we see policies that deepen the divide. Untendered spending on privatized healthcare, tax cuts for the wealthy, and subsidies for landlords and developers. These measures transfer wealth from the workers of this province to the bank accounts of a privileged few with little in return. We can look at health spending as an example. Spending more doesn't automatically mean better outcomes. If it did, the United States, which is ranked 33rd globally in health outcomes, would lead the world. Real health improvements come from addressing the social determinants of health: housing, food security, education, and childcare. To that end, this budget proposes adding maybe around 1,000 more affordable units, and the definition of affordable remains unclear. What Nova Scotia truly needs in this moment is 3,900 units per year for the next decade of housing that is deeply affordable, publicly funded, nonprofit and co-op based, ensuring residents spend no more than 30% of their income on housing. Food insecurity is another glaring issue. Nova Scotians pay some of the highest grocery prices in the country, yet we live in an agriculturally rich province. This is a failure of governance. With the right policies, investments, and strategies, we could support our agricultural sector while ensuring access to quality, affordable food. Let's not forget childcare. A staggering 33% of Nova Scotians live in a childcare desert. There's no clear plan in this budget to achieve $10 a day childcare or to address this crisis. This failure keeps people, especially women, out of the workforce, contributing to Nova Scotia's low labor force participation rates. Post-secondary education is another area of neglect. Costs are skyrocketing, quality is eroding, and government overreach is stifling progress. Without a highly educated population, there's no path to economic growth. This is because an advanced economy doesn't rip resources out of the ground and export them. Instead, an advanced economy imports and utilizes resources strategically to add value, creating jobs, fostering innovation, and improving quality of life. An economy isn't built on what's buried in the ground. You can extract all the resources you want, but the profits will line the pockets of oligarchs, leaving nothing for our communities. An economy is built on people. When people have disposable income, they spend it locally, creating demand. Demand drives growth. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives reports that Nova Scotia spends half the national average on social protections. Half. There's no scenario where health outcomes improve, the economy grows, or people reach their potential when we invest so little in our citizens. Imagine what could happen if we spent properly. Investing in people through housing, education, childcare, the social safety net wouldn't just improve health outcomes, it would transform our economy. In fact, if Nova Scotia's workforce participation reached the national average, we'd see 40,000 new jobs and a $2.4 billion boost in GDP. That's far more impactful than any other resource project, and it can happen now, not decades from now. So I know the budget has already passed, but we do implore everyone in this room to look at the Nova Scotia alternative budget created by groups like ours and the CCPA, which provides a clear alternative to investing in people, which is what we need now to get our economy moving.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Right on time. Yeah. Emily Hamid.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for your presentation. In talking to various ministers asking about what's being done about affordability, we've heard several times that the tax cuts are helping people who need it most. Can you elaborate on how that is or is not true?
Mr. Stratford.
You'll see a chart in my report showing that to be false. CCPA ran an analysis to show that the benefit of that tax cut is felt 11 times more by those at the top. Those at the bottom receive barely nothing. And in fact, the clawbacks in this budget will make them more vulnerable and will make them more susceptible to the challenges that we face. So no, the tax cuts never serve anyone but the rich.
Just a reminder that we're on FMA and that we're not talking about the budget. So if you could frame your question around the FMA. Any forward questions? Emily LeBlanc.
Yeah, sorry, I just got distracted by what's happening in the legislature. I just want to thank you for coming in to bring all of this forward. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about the housing. So yeah, in the budget there is, or in the budget in this sitting that we're in, we are hearing about some affordable units. And as you say in your remarks, the definition of affordable is unclear. Can you tell me, A, what you think is the proper definition of affordable, but also if there is like any kind of debate around that, and you know, what's best practice? What are people, what's the conversation around affordability definitions?
But before I indicate, if you could try to frame your answer around the FMA. I know you've taken a look at it. The question's kind of out of order, but I will allow it. So go ahead, Mr. Stratford.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chair. So the definition of housing, I think, affordable housing, we've lost the plot on. I think we've had way too much influence from developers and other people who are trying to make money and profit off of this. The Canadian definition for affordable housing is no more than 30% of your income. Yet we see affordable, if I quote, housing that is 80% below market value. If the market value is $2,500 a month, 80% of that is still unaffordable to anyone working in minimum wage jobs. And let's be clear, Nova Scotians, 50% of them earn below a living wage. And a living wage is a basic measurement of what it would take to live a quality life here, including housing. So there is no affordable housing in a definition that includes a 20% reduction on market value. That's not affordable to 50% of Nova Scotians.
Yeah, there is. MLA Hamid.
The FMA talks about tax breaks for the casino, as well as the removal of the tolls on the bridge. Had those changes not been made, do you think that we would have been able to have better investments in the areas that you had mentioned here?
Mr. Stratford, about a minute left.
The reality is when it comes to poverty, when it comes to even middle and class earners, tax reductions in the big picture don't impact their day-to-day. Do you know what does is childcare. What does is a meaningful transportation to get to work. Those are things you need government revenue for, and a tax cut's never going to get you there. Nova Scotians have had two they've been framed as significant tax cuts from the federal government and this provincial one, and that got washed away almost instantly with inflation. What folks need is investment from government in them. What the economy needs is that. We know that when people have disposable income, not corporations packing their bank accounts with huge amounts of wealth, when people have money to spend in the local economy to live their lives, they do. That is what creates growth, that demand. That is what fuels your economy, is when people spend. We've seen it before. Again, when we came out of the Great Depression and we invested in people and infrastructure, we started to see the economy grow. We started to see the economy grow because people had money to spend. Right now, no one has that. And so the economy will retract. And next year's budget, Financial Measures Act, will be worse.
Thank you very much. The time for questions has expired. We appreciate you coming in today. We'll move on to our next witness is Jordan Roberts, and Jordan will be coming to us virtually. Good afternoon, Jordan. Thank you very much for coming today. Please identify yourself and how you'd like to be referred to, as well as any organization you are representing, if any. That'll be followed by 5 minutes for a presentation, followed by questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Jordan Roberts. I use she, her pronouns. You can call me Jordan. That's fine. And I'm not here formally representing any organization.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the time today. As I mentioned, I'm here representing myself, addressing Bill 198. I'm a resident of the Halifax-Chebucto District. I'm a lifelong resident of the HRM and a settler here on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. For the last 18 years, I've worked with local nonprofits, including ADSM for Women and Children, the YWCA, and the Elizabeth Fry Society, mainland Nova Scotia. In 2025, I completed a 6-year stint at the University of King's College as their sexual health and safety officer, working with people who experience and enact sexualized violence. I'm currently a program manager with Langhouse, a support space for young people with mental health challenges. While not representing any of those organizations today, what I share will be informed by my 18 years in predominantly frontline roles, working to support individuals and communities experiencing homelessness, addiction, criminalization, mental health challenges, and intimate partner violence. I've spent time over the last 3 days listening online to the speakers who have come to push back against these proposed cuts, speakers offering eloquent, researched, and cited arguments, people sharing songs, anecdotes, concerns, and solutions. I'm inspired and humbled by these speakers. Truly, I signed up out of a sense of urgency and deep concern from these proposed budget cuts. While so many of these cuts are devastating, I specifically want to speak to 178 and 179, the proposed cuts to the domestic violence courts in Halifax and Sydney. These cuts, alongside others, will exacerbate vulnerabilities for those experiencing intimate partner violence. Seeing cuts to the Legal Information Society, the Nova Scotia School for Adult Learning, the Office of Addictions and Mental Health, the Mass Casualty Commission, Trauma-Informed Care, foster parent programs, Families Plus, family resource centers, and parenting journeys. All of these cuts, alongside others in a very long list, make me think of Bernadette Hamilton-Reid's comments in her presentation to Public Bills on Monday, when she stated, "An education gap becomes an income gap becomes a health gap." This is how intimate partner violence risk works as well. Lack of access to income, education, and housing creates vulnerabilities and erases safe exit options for those experiencing intimate partner violence. As we've seen too often in recent provincial history, this risk leads to fatalities and devastated families and communities. In September 2024, the Nova Scotia legislature adopted a bill declaring domestic violence an epidemic in this province. This was reported as an extraordinary reversal by Premier Tim Houston by the CBC at the time. A reversal that was spurred by 4 women from the private sector union Unifor who were advocating for the bill and who cornered Houston outside the legislative chamber. I'm thankful to those women for their advocacy and for allowing Houston an opportunity to see how reconsideration and changing minds is possible. ADSM for Women and Children published a response to these proposed budget cuts, and they articulated it perfectly. Although the government claims to be committed to the recommendations of the Mass Casualty Commission, it is reducing funding to programs born from it. Domestic violence courts in Halifax and Sydney have also been significantly cut. We find it challenging to accept that this government cares about the safety of women and others who experience intimate partner violence, while it at the same time whittles away at the very systems and services established to address that epidemic. That is the end of my prepared statements. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statements. Just a reminder, a lot of that was surrounding the budget. We're not debating the budget here. This is about Bill 198, the Financial Measures Act. So I'll ask the MLAs to frame their questions around that, and I'll ask you to try to respond in reference to Bill 198. Any questions from MLAs? MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Chair. A previous presenter reminded us with a government press release that the government itself recognizes the inseparability of Bill 198 from the budget. The FMA, in its contents, shifts the burden away, the tax burden away to address the government revenue shortfall away from corporations and further onto struggling Nova Scotians as property owners. At the same time, this lack of revenue and an additional burden for Nova Scotians comes with reductions in services and programs that make a difference to people in a lot of the respects that you mentioned. I'm wondering, the byline of this budget is protecting Nova Scotians. As a Nova Scotian, I'm wondering how protected you feel by this budget.
Again, we're not discussing the budget. Is Bill 198, the Financial Measures Act? Go ahead.
Chair, I, in my remarks, framed my question through the lens of the FMA and referenced a government press release that did the same. The question should not be challenged on that basis. I provided the context you're looking for, and I resent the eating of this witness's time to be able to respond.
We won't be eating her time. I'll indicate her now. Go ahead, Mrs. Roberts.
I appreciate that question. Yeah, I don't feel protected. I don't feel seen. I have a child in this province. The cuts to artists in school, I could have presented entirely on that. The cuts to Mi'kmaq language revitalization and culture, the complete lack of consultation that happened with African, Nova Scotian, and Mi'kmaq communities in this budget. And I think what you're seeing outside on Hollis Street, what you're hearing through the windows, what you are hearing through this Public Bills Committee of the last 3 days are thousands of Nova Scotians saying that this is not a budget that keeps them safe, that makes them feel prioritized. Evie, who just spoke, this is not a province that sees our youth seeing a future here or seeing an ability to stay in this province, let alone thriving artistically, culturally, from a tourism and culture perspective, but specifically when seeing cuts to things like the domestic violence courts and what we've seen from why the province is declared an epidemic, there are lethal outcomes. So much of the comments that I've heard today are about, our arts purely an urban concern as opposed to rural. And I think that those are important conversations. We're also going to see death come out of some of these cuts. And that is something that I think we really need to grapple with. The arts are important. Life comes out of arts. Opportunities to get out of dangerous situations comes out of the arts. But all of these cuts have such tangible consequences behind them, and I hope that people grapple with those consequences as they make their votes.
MLA Hamed.
Thank you very much for being here and for your presentation. You mentioned that you have a child in Nova Scotia, my question to you is, in the FMA, there's some changes as to, conservation easements that would have left land in perpetuity protected, as well as some increased taxes on woodlot owners who choose to not cut down their wood. Or their trees. So, with changes like those in the FMA, would you say that this is a province that your child would want to stay in long term once they start making their own decisions?
Ms. Roberts.
I think you lost him at cutting artists from schools. I mean, I think that's again, the interconnections of these budget cuts, knowing that Mi'kmaq individuals have been stewards of these lands and waters for time immemorial, time before we had a legislature or a government or a Halifax on this land, and seeing what feels like targeted and pointed cuts when we're talking about increasing resource extraction while not having consultation with Indigenous communities about these cuts. We see those things as interconnected. We see that there is no protection for this land, there is no protection for the protectors of this land, and that we are willing to sell out our arts and culture, our heritage, our safety for resource extraction. And the vast profits of that resource extraction will not be going back into my child or the average Nova Scotian citizen.
See no more questions. We appreciate you coming in today. Thank you for your contribution. We'll now call upon our final witness for today, Morel Burgess. Bourgeois? Okay. Murray?
Mireille.
Mireille, okay.
Mireille
I will do better. All right.
No worries.
So please introduce yourself, indicate any organization you are representing, if any, and then that'll be followed by 5 minutes for your presentation, followed by questions from MLAs. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Mireille Bourgeois, and I'm the founder and artistic director of IOTA Institute and IOTA Studios. We have been operating for 10 years as an art collective and creative agency here in Nova Scotia. I'm here to speak about Act 62, the Gaming Controlled Act. The proposal to remove the deed transfer taxes on casinos while also making massive cuts to arts and culture programs funded by the Nova Scotia Gaming Support to Culture, which focuses on rural Nova Scotian and equity programs, such as the Arts Equity Funding Initiatives, is a perverse example of targeting the most vulnerable to feed the rich. I was an art student from New Brunswick who landed at NSCAD in the early 2000s. After working in the arts and mental health, I left to get my master's in New York and eventually returned to Halifax to contribute to the arts community that raised me. I directed a nonprofit organization, I worked as research faculty support at NSCAD, and then I became a civil servant, first as the art manager for the Nova Scotia Art Bank, whose program was cut entirely, and then a program officer at Arts Nova Scotia, whose funding is being reduced by 30%. In all my time working in the arts sector, I have learned that culture is urgent. The arts put food on people's tables, yes, but they also revive forgotten stories, help prevent depression and loss of life. I left in 2020 my permanent government job and returned to IOTA in part because I wanted to respond to the urgency myself and much more effectively than I ever could from the inside, so to speak. IOTA Institute is an organization that works with artists to manage research projects and art tours at home and internationally. IOTA Studios, its sister organization, is a corporation that builds out strategies for artists to leverage grants, institutional fees, and commercial earnings. We leverage art funding from all levels of government, corporate, and nonprofit partners to ensure that funding from out of province enters the Nova Scotian culture sector. Our model is based on the idea that to reach a livelihood as cultural workers and artists, we must amplify high revenue generating activities while diversifying our revenues. That is how a good business survives. This government seems to be biting the hand that feeds them, the arts. As a CEO, I can say this is just bad business. Every day, IOTA collaborates with individuals who have been subject to systemic oppression and fallen in the cracks of government support. Among many, IOTA works with disabled, racialized, queer, and transcultural workers. I have seen over the last 24 years that arts and culture does the specialized work a government cannot do themselves. Among many urgent roles, culture helps those who are harmed and forgotten and propels them to contribute to their community in innovative and creative ways. This could never be accomplished by giving casinos tax breaks, and especially not if the government also allows the gaming corporation to pull away from its responsibility to give back to its own regions through those cut programs. The 24-25 Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation's annual report showed about 3,400 jobs created and about $196 million in tax revenue to the province. By comparison, cultural production provided 22,000 jobs and $331 million in tax revenues in the same fiscal years. The arts and culture sector is a multi-billion-dollar industry worldwide, and by cutting its forward movement, the Nova Scotia government is preventing its own citizens from participating and benefiting from it and jeopardizing how we present ourselves on a world stage. This is not just unwise, this is dangerous to our social progress. These cuts are at best ignorant disconnect with how they affect individuals on an intersectional level and at worst an intentional mass attack on a vulnerable group of people. On top of being a cultural worker, I have also been a caregiver to my dying mother, who has used caregiver services and recreational art therapy to prolong her quality of life. I am a mother to a disabled child who has needed teacher's assistance and the arts and sciences in their school to help with everyday challenges and emotional regulation, and a wife to a husband in the film industry whose salary has never fully recovered after the devastating repercussions of cutting the film tax credits. In the simplest terms, Act 62 sees the same corporate gaming entity giving a tax break that drives the province further into a deficit, while allowing the same corporation to slash funding to the arts and culture that would bring financial and cultural wealth into Nova Scotia. By doing so, lowers the gaming corporations. By doing so, lowers the gaming corporation's community impact numbers and lowers the jobs created annually. These cuts are a workers' rights issue. The cut programs are integral to the cultural and environmental sovereignty of our region. The cultural sector deserves more after our robust contributions to the Nova Scotia economy. And I ask finally, who does this act defend?
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now open the floor up to questions from MLAs. MLA Wozni.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I did a little bit of checking into the work that you do at the IOTA Institute. Clearly, you're someone with understanding about how the arts are both intersectional but provide innovative and responsive ways to generate value in community and contribute to the economy. I'm wondering, at a time that this budget or the Financial Measures Act, as it shifts the tax burden away from the wealthiest, further onto the shoulders of struggling Nova Scotians, I'm wondering what revenue the government is leaving on the table by de-investing in the arts, rather than finding ways to route funding to the arts that might help address the revenue shortfall that leaves us in a $1.3 billion hole.
Thank you. Thanks for that question.
Mireille, go ahead.
Thank you for the question. Just for context, IOTA applies for about 25 grants per year, some for our own organization and some on behalf of artists and cultural workers that we work with. These grants, more than 64% of the revenues are generated and leveraged to come back to the Nova Scotia sector, with an approximate $20,000 grant, which is about the highest level of grants that we could get through any of these programs. We can leverage that grant with federal funding for about, let's say, as an example, for a visual arts exhibition to tour across Canada. This is what we do. We apply for a $20,000 grant. We can leverage that $20,000 into a $200,000 grant with the Federal Arts Council. If 64% of that $220,000 comes back to Nova Scotia, that is a loss of $140,000 to Nova Scotia tax revenues.
Thank you. Any further questions? MLA Wozni.
I also very much appreciate your insight into how the arts are intersectional. There's a lot of focus on sort of the economic benefits of the arts in terms of its role in our economy. But I'm wondering if you could sort of elaborate not only on we've talked about some of the economic benefits, but how do the arts intersect with other stated government priorities in terms of conservation, furthering the goals of clean energy, improving health care, addressing the mental health crisis, addressing the epidemic of gender-based and intimate partner violence. We sort of touched briefly on that. I wonder if you can speak more about how de-investing in the arts actually might result in losses in all those other respects as well.
Mireille, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a complex question that requires a lot more time than 2 minutes. I will try my best. As I said, the arts are intersectional in the way that anyone can get involved in the arts. But most of the individuals that get involved in the arts are the folks that did not find a place for themselves elsewhere. A lot of folks that have maybe alternative views, alternative lifestyles, in terms of just how they want to raise their children, how they want to engage in the arts, in the world itself, are just alternative. But they don't have to be. They're intersectional in the way that they actually engage with everyone, and that's what I think makes it difficult to see it as a unified group, and I think that's why we have to pay attention to the intersectionality. We have to know that even though some of the funding was returned to some organizations and programs, those same folks who would benefit from those programs are also benefiting from art programs as well. Just because you cannot extricate social programs from arts and culture, they are one and the same. Our collaborators are Indigenous, people of color, women, LGBTQ folks. These are also artists. I think that we kind of forget that artists and cultural workers exist within all of these intersectional identities, and that's why it's so important to fund them, but also to understand that we're workers. Cultural workers are workers, and by cutting so many programs, you're actually cutting our right to work. You're jeopardizing our livelihoods. You're jeopardizing the livelihoods of intersectional individuals.
Thank you very much for your contribution today. We appreciate you coming in. We also appreciate you waiting and being patient as we were late. There was no one on this committee controlled any of that, so we apologize for that. Thank you for coming in. With that, this is the last witness for today. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.